This is E2B, Energy to Business, a podcast by Opportune, where we bring you in-house expertise that serves all energy sectors. We examine emerging financial and technology trends and provide a broad perspective on ways to stay ahead, create opportunities, and execute market strategies.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of E2B, Energy to Business, an Opportune podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B. And folks, thanks so much for joining us on another episode of the show. We appreciate you listening along to some important energy industry thought leadership. As we explore today's topic, make sure you're heading to our website, opportune.com. Again, opportune.com for more information on everything we're going to be breaking down. And also make sure you're subscribing to E2B on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just hit that subscribe button and you'll have a full catalog of previous conversations, plus notifications when we drop new ones. So on today's episode, I'm excited to be joined by three of our recent new hirees from our corporate finance division here at Opportune. This team focuses on helping corporations deal with funding sources, with capital structuring and investment decisions, a lot of big picture work and granular work as well. And the goal of today's conversation is to get their thoughts on what led them to not only join Opportune specifically, but also to choose to work within the energy industry as a whole and to put their financial skills to the test in an industry that's going through so many of its own transformations. So I'm honored to be joined by three guests today. We'll go down the list introducing each of them. First up, Durham Craig, a recent hire from Texas A&M. We're also joined by Sam Sicola, another recent hire from Texas A&M. And last but not least, Jack Fisher. You'll notice a trend here. Another Aggie, A&M graduate as well. Durham, Sam, and Jack. Thank you for the three of you for joining me today here on the podcast. It's going to be a real pleasure breaking down your thoughts on your career, on your entrance to the energy industry, why you chose Opportune, and more importantly, how you look to continue to shape some of the work that you're going to be doing at Opportune and in the broader industry. So I want to start with a first question here. What are all of you most excited about when joining the oil and gas industry, right? What is really amping you up about this industry? And again, more specifically about joining the industry with Opportune. Jack, let's start with you here.
What I'm most excited about joining the oil and gas industry is just to learn more about one of the industries that's most important to all of our daily lives, powering, supplying, all the things that we do. I think it's often overlooked how much oil and gas goes into just everyday life, and so to see the business behind that and just the way the industry is moving and evolving is going to be really exciting in the years to come. All
right, Sam, toss it to you. Your thoughts? Same question.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off Jack a little bit here. I just like where it's headed in the future, to go in the future. And because there's so many evolving technologies and just kind of more toward, it's transitioning into a renewable side. And I'm excited to be at kind of the beginning of that and kind of make that transition from traditional oil and gas to, and kind of seeing the energy transition to renewables and just being a part of that.
Yeah, and for being on the consulting side, joining the industry, I think I'm going to be really exposed to pretty much every different aspect of it, which is going to be great as far as being able to learn a lot as I'm newly entering the industry. And as they were saying, I think at Opportune, we're trying to take on that kind of early evolution into the sustainability as far as, noticing other bigger companies are starting to take on massive projects. I think Chevron made that $300 million commitment back in February for low carbon technology. Just kind of seeing that early stage and evolution is definitely going to be exciting. And just really just the dynamic energy industry is what really appealed to me.
And I'll add another thought along there too, as well. So there's transitions towards renewables, but as well just efficiencies and more clean practices when it comes to oil and gas in the traditional way. It's also fascinating to see how we can even adjust the way we do things currently to be more efficient, be more productive, and clean at the same time.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it actually brings up a good thought. When you were in college, and it's not like I'm that far removed either. I graduated 3 years ago, but this subject was not really as critically in front of everyone's face, and that would be ESG, right? Environmental, social, and governance factors. I'm curious if your classes were bringing that topic up and, involving all of the technology that goes into oil and gas and the transition into ESG as well as part of your curriculum as you fine-tuned your financial expertise closer to the energy industry, right? Is this something that has been on your radar? Yes, no, why or why not? Thoughts there?
So I took some petroleum engineering classes at Texas A&M through the Petroleum Ventures program, and we really just focused on petroleum engineering. There was some discussion about ESG, but it was a much heavier focus on traditional drilling oil and gas out of the ground. And it was an extremely helpful program to be in, especially coming into the oil and gas industry, and especially at Opportune, having that finance and technical background.
Well, too, on top of what Sam said, I was not a part of the same program, but even just the education that we had more broadly did focus on some case studies that were ESG related, some oil and gas specifically, some just outside of the space. But on a high level, I think it was addressed, but maybe not to the same specificity that might be needed.
I think that in the future, it's going to get more or talked about more, but we were kind of just like right at the beginning of it, and we took a more traditional route. At least in my experience.
Yeah, I took an intro to petroleum engineering class one summer just to get a better idea once I wanted to get into the industry, and I can certainly see how that class can kind of transform into more lectures and learning on the kind of ESG practices in the industry, but it was certainly more traditional styles. And it was just an introduction class, so a lot of basics. And so it didn't really talk about, the future of the industry or anything pertaining to that as much, as far as just kind of laying down the basics of oil and gas and different energy sectors.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good segue into our third question here. How does your degree as well as your internship experience align with specifically what Opportune is doing in the energy industry? Or maybe an even more in-depth follow-up would be, do you feel that your education and your internship experience prepared you well for working at Opportune? Or are there ever any moments where you feel like you're in over your head, or there's still concepts that you struggle to fully grasp? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, especially at A&M, there's so many different resources that you can utilize to set you up for success no matter what industry you go into. So I think we all benefited from that, but certainly from a finance major, there's so many different classes that we take to where, maybe we don't apply, a certain formula that we used for something, but definitely general knowledge of different categories. I took like a valuation class. We have a valuation group here. An entrepreneurial finance class that really learned about startup companies and how they get their financing or how they're backed, which can be super helpful as far as working with smaller private companies that are trying to make it in the industry. And then also took like a managerial finance class, which, having to work with managers and companies, we can kind of get a better understanding of their goals. So I certainly feel like my coursework certainly helped me get to where I'm at Opportune, and I feel comfortable. And certainly coming in, I definitely don't know everything, but that's part of coming into the oil and gas industry. There's a lot for me to learn, and I'm really excited about it.
What I'll add to on top of what Durham said as well is there were a lot of very relevant classes, and the ones he mentioned especially. But as well, even the classes that maybe didn't relate directly taught you just like a level of critical thinking and ability to learn quickly in the course of one semester. And so I think that'll be particularly useful as well, going into a job that there is a lot to learn, being able to apply those same critical thinking skills, problem solving skills and the ability to learn is something that I think Texas A&M did a really good job of instilling across our various courses.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with both Durham and Jack. Like, obviously, we're not going to know everything that we need to know from day one. But like Jack said, like learning how to learn, I think is a big thing. And that's something I learned how to do in the Petroleum Ventures program, because I was thrown into a very technical practice, petroleum engineering, and just like learning how to, what to look up, how to look it up most efficiently, and applying that to apply it to a project is something that I learned through that. And going off Durham, like we have a pretty good basic understanding of finance from all the classes that we've taken, and just like applying those and like having those to fall back on when you have a question, or like just to go, like, what you need to look up if you have a question. And that's something that A&M, I think, did a really good job with, is just teaching us how to learn.
And I'll add one more point as well while we're thinking of this. But I think another thing outside of the classroom that Texas A&M did really well is teaching us how to build relationships and build networks. And I think that's something that'll be valuable inside of Opportune and with outside Opportune, or people outside of Opportune, being able to build those relationships and networks with clients and coworkers and individuals is something that I think we were able to learn a lot from in undergrad. Yeah,
Sam, I'm glad you brought that up. I agree with that. I think your insight on learning how to learn is very accurate. That is a skill all of its own. For me, learning how to learn was like in college, learning how to build out flashcards to make sure I retained information, right? I mean, I know that's kind of a dumb anecdote there, but it's an important point. Honing the skill of acquiring and retaining information is not something that's just picked up naturally. So it's definitely a process and something that you get better at with time. Let's go ahead and move on to our next question. I'm curious, what was it that ended up leading all of you to a career at Opportune specifically, right? The energy industry is transforming so much. It continues to grow even through that transformation as renewables and new alternative forms of energy get introduced at scale and, create more opportunities for niche specialties within the industry. Again, with all that in mind, why choose Opportune instead of some of the other options available in the industry?
Well, so I was an intern here last summer, and it kind of drew me to that internship. I was at Career Fair one day at A&M and talked to Trey Brasso, and we just talked for a while, and it sounded like a great company and something that I want to get involved with. And then I met more people through the interview process and came to realize that this was a really good place, like with a really good culture, and a great company with a lot of different service lines that will help me in my career going forward, just learning as much as possible. I thought that this was a great place to start my career.
Yeah, so I interned last summer with Sam as well. And originally in my original job search, early in college, I wanted to pursue the oil and gas industry or some sort of consulting. So I guess Opportune is a perfect mix of that. So that's why I applied in the first place. And then spending the summer here working, despite COVID and having to follow all those regulations and working remote sometimes, I still got a good feel for the culture here at Opportune. And one thing that really sold me was one of the first days, one of the consultants was kind of telling me about the company, everything that they do. And at the end, he said, we expect everybody to get along and we want to have a good time and enjoy each other and be able to build relationships to work efficiently. But at the end of the day, everybody expects you to get your work done, but not only get it done, but do it well. And so that was something that really appealed to me, because if I'm going to be working with the same people every day, I want to build a relationship and be able to go to them if I need something, or have them be able to come to me if they need something as well. But then also be held to standard to get work done well and efficiently to where I can make an impact. So that was just kind of the culture that I really am drawn to. And so that really helped me pick Opportune, despite the fact of the reputation and knowing that they do great work. That was something that really sold me.
And I'll add too, from not having been an intern at Opportune, I had a different internship in the oil and gas midstream space last summer. And so kind of similar to what Durham said, I wanted to continue to pursue energy and as well consulting. And so this Opportune provided a place as I got put in touch through recruiting where I could find all of that to develop a broad skill set just of different opportunities and experiences, and all the industry experts at Opportune, are able to pour into you in that way. So I think just the ability to learn and see and do a lot of different things was really attractive, and Opportune provided that as a recent college graduate.
Now, working off of that last question as well, in relation to your specific area of expertise, again, finance, you work in the corporate finance division at Opportune. What attracted you to a company like Opportune, where you also have to work with so many external partners outside of the scope of your day-to-day? What about that was appealing to you as you began your career? Was that a factor that influenced your decision here? Give us your thoughts.
For me, it's about meeting different clients and working with different clients and not doing the same thing over and over again every day. It's always going to be something new. Like that way you build Opportune's network, but also your own personal network with these clients that you're meeting with. And that's something that really attracted me.
So it attracted me as well, specifically, and Sam already kind of mentioned it, but it's the ability to do lots of different tasks and learn lots of different things. And so being presented with different problem sets, having to think differently, more critically about a problem you may have never seen before, is just something that provides, I think, a young professional a lot of experience just to be able to develop the skills that you do have in a very dynamic way.
Yeah, and building a network, I think one thing that really drew me to want to do consulting is doing work to help others. I think it's something that has always kind of driven me, is being able to use my skills to benefit other people. That's just something that I like to do. And so whether that's, if a client's in a good situation and helping them succeed further, or if they're in a negative situation and helping them get through that, any sorts of, and like Sam was saying, we're not going to be doing a lot of the same work. And so kind of that diversity and being able to help people in different situations, and also being able to help the firm internally as well, is something that really drew me to consulting. And that's kind of why I wanted to go in this direction.
Yeah, I really like what you add there about adding value to clients. I think that's a really important part of all of this, is that you get to add value, create value, while hopefully learning something along the way.
All right, we've been talking a lot, from the past tense perspective here. We've been looking back a lot on how you got to Opportune. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's start to look at the present as well as moving forward. How do you think Opportune is already adding, as well as going to continue to add value to your career? And how do you think being on the finance team specifically is going to add value to your career as you develop those skills in an energy industry context?
I'm really excited to be able to work in a team to where I know upper level management is going to invest in me as well. As a person that's new to the industry, I think it's very beneficial to have people invest in you and want you to learn and be able to become an asset of the company. So that's something that I think is really valuable. Opportune has groups for, kind of internal networking and a mentor system. And so going through the recruitment process, knowing that, that's something I knew I wanted to buy into, because I feel like that will just pay dividends in the future. Being able to be invested in at such an early stage in my career.
Yeah, I can add to that. From my experience last summer and just a few weeks starting full time, I can tell that people here want you to succeed, especially if it's at Opportune, but even outside of Opportune. I remember last summer, I was in intern, and someone said to me, "We would love to have you on as come full time, but if you choose to go another route to start your career, we 100% support you." And that spoke volumes to me. Just the people, like our bosses, our bosses' bosses, our bosses' bosses' boss, they care about who they hire, and they want to invest, like Durham said, to invest in you and watch you succeed. And that's probably the main thing that I'm excited about, is learning how, like, leaning on these people who have been in the industry for years and decades, and learning from them, and kind of branching off of that and using their knowledge and my experience to see personal and professional growth in myself.
And I'll add too that one of the things that's really exciting about working within this group and these teams is that the industry experts and industry leaders that Sam and Durham talked about, that same knowledge and expertise and energy and excitement filters down through the ranks. And so the younger people that we're going to be surrounded with seem incredibly motivated and excited to be a part of this industry and this company. So that energy is something I think that'll really fuel us along as we work.
All right, I'm going to continue on that team and crank it up a smidge. We're talking long-term plans now, which is always everyone's favorite thing to talk on, right? So I'm curious to hear from all of you, as you begin your careers in the energy industry, do you have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan? Is your goal to remain in energy? Is your goal to expand your financial knowledge across various industries? What are your thoughts?
I would say for a more short-term plan would be to get kind of integrated in the industry that I'm working in, and obviously that's going to be in the consulting, oil and gas area, and to just try to learn as much in the next couple of years to where I'm going to be able to make a significant impact in the company. You know, right now I'm in a stage where I'm learning a lot. I'm learning how things work, meeting new people within the firm. But, you know, after a couple of years, you know, I want to be able to put myself in a position to where I can start taking, you know, smaller leadership roles in places and making my own impact.
Short term, just put as much work as I can in right now, because I know that it's going to pay off for the future. And like Durham said, just like doing anything you can to learn, and building that network of knowledge really will pay dividends in the future as you take on more leadership roles, which will happen naturally with time as you prove yourself that you can do it. People will give you more leadership, and ultimately just like working your way up to being the leader of a team and leader of a company, really, whether it's here or somewhere else. I don't know. Learning as much as I can right now will pay dividends in the future as I get more leadership roles.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sam and Durham said it really well. I think to be an effective leader, you need to understand who you're leading and what they're doing really well. And so at this point in our career, it's just a matter of learning as much as we can and doing it really well to prime us to continue to progress in our careers.
All right, Durham, Sam, Jack, thank you so much to the three of you for your thoughts so far. We've got one last major question for you before we close completely. But are there any big picture thoughts you'd like to express on, just the general topic we've been having today as we close up the podcast? Maybe more specifically, is there any advice you would give to someone who could be in the position that you were just in, right? Applying for a job at Opportune or trying to find a job in the finance side of the energy industry? Any tips or strategies you'd offer, and why?
Well, I think we touched on it already a little bit, but one piece of advice I'd add to at least younger people or people in college looking to find what sort of career they want to do is that not to be intimidated by oil and gas as an industry, just because while it might be shifting, our planet requires fuels that are sustainable and efficient and practical. And so it's an evolving, exciting industry. And so I would just hope that young people consider that as just a really exciting place to start and learn and launch from there.
I guess one thing is, if if I was talking to me 2 years ago, looking for a job, I would say, don't be afraid to seek out something that you're not that knowledgeable on, like an industry, practice, and go out and talk to people who are in those industries. And just, people love to give tips and advice to students. And that changes real quickly when you're not a student anymore. Because as a student, you're just trying to learn. And once you graduate, people think that it's for other reasons. But take advantage of that and talk to as many people as you can, learn as much as you can about an industry that you're interested in, or practice that you're interested in, like consulting or any other thing. And just talk to them, go to lunch with them, spend as much time as you can with them, and that will pay dividends, I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think especially the networking part early in college, the biggest thing, and I feel like people around our age struggle with, is just to pick up the phone and call anybody who's in the industry. That's actually how I learned a little bit about Opportune. I picked up the phone and called one of my friends who used to work with a partner here, and he told me about him and some of the other people he worked with and the culture. And then we started talking about the industry. And so just little conversations like that with somebody that, you may not talk to every day, can be super valuable. And I actually credit some of those phone calls for the reason why I'm at Opportune right now. So I think that's super valuable, what Sam was pointing at.
And I think on that note, that does it for the conversation. Thank you so much to the three of you. Again, Durham Craig, Jack Fisher, and Sam Sicola, for sharing your insights on entering the financial side of the energy industry and starting to build a really strong career with Opportune. It's always exciting to hear everyone's passion and vision for how they see themselves fitting into an industry like this that, again, is going through so many transformations, digital, structural, environmental, etc. I'm sure y'all are going to play a big part in helping move the industry forward. So thanks again to Durham Craig, Sam Sicola, and Jack Fisher, all recent A&M graduates and members of the corporate finance division at Opportune.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed getting to talk to you guys. Thanks for having us on.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to today's episode of E2B, Energy to Business, an Opportune podcast. If you like what you heard and want to listen to previous episodes, make sure you're heading to our website, opportune.com, as well as subscribing to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm your host, Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B, and we'll catch you on the very next episode of E2B, Energy to Business.